About 2 months ago, I saw the video game Night Trap for the first time. It is a sick, disgusting video game, in my judgment.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Nostalgic Pixel. I'm Brian, and today's episode, this very special episode, we're going to be looking at Night Trap on the PlayStation 4. Also, they said it would never happen.
And let me say that for the record, I want to state that Night Trap will never appear on a Nintendo system.
But thanks to Nintendo and Reggie, we now have Night Trap on the Nintendo Switch. And surprisingly enough, we also got Night Trap on the PlayStation Vita. So, with that, let's take a look at Night Trap. For me, one of the full motion videos that kicked off the whole genre, and it was very short-lived for good reason, but let's go take a look at this campy video game called Night Trap that caused so much drama. The setup for Night Trap goes something like this. Girls have been disappearing at the Lakeshore Winery. The SCAT team has been surveillancing the house and found security cameras and a series of traps in the house. They tapped into them, and now you have control of the cameras and the traps. Tonight, a new group of girls are coming to the house. The SCAT team has sent in Kelly to go undercover. Keep a lookout for her and keep the girls safe. On the original Sega CD release, SCAT stood for
the Sega Control Attack Team.
And all later releases, SCAT stood for
Who are you?
We're SCAT, Special Control Attack Team.
How to Play Night Trap.
A winning effort within Night Trap saves the women. Your job as the player is to identify the villains and to trap them. If you are a good player, you keep the villains from the women and men who are potential victims.
It's a constant scanning of the camera feeds looking to trap Augs.
It's an effort to trap and kill women.
Nope. Augs are slow, decrepit vampires. While the house is owned by a family of vampires, the Augs are people seen as being given charity to due to their poor state, and you will find out in the game is filled with trial and error. To beat this game, you will have to sit down with a pen and paper and basically make a timesheet. Everything happens at certain times. If you miss it, you pause it, write down the time, and if you get it, pause it, write down the time, and what room you were in. If you don't have the brains or the guts to complete this mission, then give the controller to someone who does. The other thing besides trapping the Augs is listening to when they change the color codes to the traps.
Trap access code from blue to green.
Don't worry, Mom.
This is important that you don't miss them, because if you miss them, you're pretty much in a blind guess on what the code is to trap any of them.
Gotcha.
But since this whole game is an FMV, all these events take place at the exact same time in the exact same place. The only thing that changes is what the code will be. But the game isn't always having you constantly scanning through the 8 different surveillance cameras. It does give you a break now and again to actually sit there and enjoy the story as it plays out. After a failed Kickstarter in 2014, a video showed up on the internet in 2016 showing Night Trap playing on a smartphone. This was all thanks to Tyler Hogle. It is thanks to Tyler that we have the 25th anniversary edition of Night Trap for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. And last year, in 2018, it got a re-release on the Switch and the PlayStation Vita. The footage was taken from beta master tapes. You have your choice of different layouts taken from design elements from previous releases, from the Sega CD to the 32X and the PC. This game was ported over by Tyler over at Screaming Villains. Thank you, Tyler.
Shame on people that produce that trash. It's child abuse, in my judgment.
My history with Night Trap. This was my first Sega CD game I bought after playing the pack-in games that came with my Sega CD. I was excited about this new genre, full motion video. The excitement for this genre was short-lived. During those few years, Digital Pictures was cranking them out. The big star in this game is Dana Plato. Dana Plato is best known for her role as Kimberly in Different Strokes. Different Strokes was a popular sitcom in the late 70s and early 80s. I remember watching this most of the time on reruns when I'd come home from school. Since this was the first game I bought for my Sega CD, and I got my Sega CD at launch, I bought it right before all the noise came out in 1993 when Congress freaked out over this game and Mortal Kombat. This further pointed out that games were changing. from the days of Pac-Man and Super Mario Brothers.
It has been quite a leap from Pac-Man to Night Trap.
Nintendo was happy to throw its competitor Sega under the bus. The good thing that was to come from this was the rating system. Also, all this noise in the press really got Night Trap to get a lot more attention than it originally had. It's ridiculous. These congressmen had no interest in playing this game, and all they wanted to do is just talk over this one clip that they kept playing and seeing over and over about where the girl gets murdered. Instead, they saw this as a murder simulator, instead of understanding that the goal is to actually do the quite opposite, is to protect these girls and save them from the vampires.
Obviously, I think that Night Trap denigrates a sexual group, namely women.
Okay, so the story in Night Trap plays out like this. The parents have to go deliver some blood to the Augs.
Too bad we must visit the Augs tonight.
Which they're providing as like some form of charity to them, as they feel sorry for these people. And the Augs are these decrepit vampires that need blood to become a full-strength vampire. They're like underprivileged vampires, so they wear all this black outfits because they're hiding their ugliness. Little do the parents know that when they go to visit the Augs and find they're not there, they only find out that the Augs have been coming into their house, and that's the people you've been capturing this whole time. The two boys are excited that the parents are going to be gone and that they're going to finally be able to get to do this on their own and show their own strength. They're excited that there's going to be 6 people coming over, and they're going to get to capture them all.
You got 6. That's got to be some kind of record.
Sarah's excited because she's been spending all week at the mall trying to convince these girls to come over, and the girls arrive, they're excited to be there, and it doesn't take long to once they sit down and settle in.
Sarah, your parents are leaving. So?
Come on, Sarah, what are you gonna do? It's the weekend, we're all here, parents are out.
Come on, Sarah, what's the first thing you think of?
Party! To start jamming out to this awesome song called Night Trap. Then one of the guys bumps into one of the girls, and it reminds him of, I guess, this old long-lost love he had hundreds of years ago, but it can't be because that was hundreds of years ago, and he's a vampire. So because of that, he starts showing a little bit of remorse and wants her to get out of there and run away. Although this information comes a little too late. At this point, you probably saved the first girl, and the bathroom scene in this scene was the one that caused so much stir with the Congress, even though they always saw the scene where you would lose and the girl would be attacked by the Augs and be captured. The ideal scene would be that you rescued her and then continue on playing the game. After her, the whole game really starts speeding up. At this point, the SCAT team has kind of been scouting out the place, and some of them people have already been going missing. You can't save them all, but you can definitely save all the girls. Also, a small side story is this guy named Eddie, who's some sort of crazy neighbor. At least that's what the vampires are billing him as, when in actuality he's more aware that these people are vampires and has come up with this crazy gun that vaporizes the Augs and vampires. So next thing you know, the parents are back, and they notice that someone has come in through the front door, because at the same time, the SCAT team has decided to move in on the house and save the girls. So when the parents come in, they come in through the back, surprise the SCAT team, and they all kind of sit down in the living room and discuss this as normal human beings. Well, not quite exactly. The SCAT team is starting to have a hard time to realize that vampires exist, and they are here and they're real. So people all start running through the house, and you start continuing to capture them one by one until you've captured the whole family and left Kelly safe. Although it's funny, because even though Kelly's safe, what happened to everybody else? They all just left the house.
I mean, how would you like to have a teenage daughter go out on a date with someone who's just watched or played 3 hours of that game?
So the 25th anniversary edition of Night Trap comes with all sorts of extras, including a 1995 documentary about Night Trap, the making of it, as well as all its stir in Congress and what happened afterwards with the sales. There's also a nice interview of James Riley and talking about creating Night Trap and what's been going on the last 25 years with Night Trap. It includes an unreleased game called Scene of the Crime. Scene of the Crime was a game that was more of a proof of concept at the time. They were trying to see if it was even possible to make a game in this kind of technology with this kind of idea of live action. However, in order to actually play Scene of the Crime, you have to get 100% in Night Trap. While this doesn't sound terribly difficult, it did put up quite a challenge because if you only miss one, it's game over and starting over. So I finally got 100%.
All right, you were perfect. Nobody's ever done that. I knew I could count on you. Thanks. You are wonderful.
And I got to play Scene of the Crime. Scene of the Crime is an interesting game. It's very basic. It's just, as you can see, this beginning ideas of what later became Night Trap. It's a simple concept. There's a rich old man who's got a house full of security cameras and a bunch of relatives he believes are going to steal from him. So what you do is you go around the house watching different feeds, trying to see who is going to be the person that's going to steal the jewels, and also keep an eye on the room where the jewels are. And then at the end, they're all caught in the act, and you have to pick who the villain is. So my original understanding of this game is that it was going to be completely random, and that everyone had a motive to steal the money, and they could all be possibly guilty, and that the game was going to choose randomly who was going to be the bad guy, and you had to randomly pick the right one. It was a short game reminiscent of the game Clue. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look back at Night Trap on the PlayStation 4. Interesting that it got a release on the Vita as well on the Switch, even though I swear that I didn't think that was going to happen. At least growing up I didn't. But glad to see that, they gave it a second chance, taking a look back at it. It wasn't so bad as they thought. And I find a lot of these video clips that are pretty funny of what they had to say back then. But anyway, this game, it's a fun game, but not as much fun to play. And I think we kind of got that with the whole pad and paper. But thanks again, guys, for watching. Please like and subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one. How will you just let that happen?
Control, how could you let that happen?
This one hasn't come out. Love the Vita.
The girls should be pulling into the driveway. You're wasting time. Get over there now. Looks like you're not up for this mission. Breaking